Hello, guys. Thanks for joining me. And for others who are listening us, let me introduce myself. My name is Bekfi, Head of Global Pharmacovigilance Operations at Biomapas, and I have Theo Giannou joining us from Bloom Agents, and Chuan joining us also from Bloom Agents. Theo is in Sydney, Australia, and Chuan is located in Singapore. They are from Global Agents, which is a regional service provider for pharmacovigilance in the region, and we work together to make sure PV is fully supported globally. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, Albert.
So let me jump into this. Asia Pacific is a huge and very diverse region, and I wonder if you had any interesting challenges due to this diversity, and maybe you can share some insights how you managed it.
Great question, Albert. We've been, I guess, in the region for around about 30 years. So we've grasped a lot of understanding about working across cultures, and I think initially, I remember that was the biggest challenge in the sense of how do you work across different cultures and how do you modify the way you work to adapt to each of the changes and interpret the situation and ensure it's a cohesive team and a cohesive work. So some interesting challenges, I guess. We offer all our agents working across cultures training, so they understand, and there's a lot of opportunities for misinterpretation, which we focus on. I can't think of sort of any examples. I guess would be the most popular examples that people like to talk about is the difference between, for instance, the Australian culture where people are very direct in their communication versus many cultures in Asia Pacific where cohesiveness is a bit more important, and being a bit more indirect is considered a bit more professional. So I'd imagine in a lot of countries in Asia Pacific, Australians are maybe considered slightly unsophisticated in how direct we are. So that's one of the things I think that always comes up in the sense of ensuring there's enough space and enough time to listen and provide the forums for people to actually, and the experts to actually provide their input. But it's a wonderful challenge, and it's actually, once you understand what you need to do, it's wonderful to see the results of that when they happen.
Thanks, Theo. So this is a big region with a lot of independent health authorities. Can you maybe share some updates of recent changes of regulations in the past couple of years that might be interesting for our audience?
Yes, absolutely. I guess when I think thematically on the many changes that have happened across the region, and as you can appreciate, there's quite a lot of changes happening all the time with so many authorities, and often sort of thinking along the same lines, but taking a slightly different approach, or their timing of their approach or implementation may be different. I think the digital transformation has been quite significant in the region over the last couple of years, particularly with safety reporting. A recent example I can think of would be with Taiwan, where there's been additional security measures taken because of some cybersecurity risks. And so there's been a real tightening of how the reporting happens, who's doing the reporting. One of the few countries where you have to get registered as an individual, certified to be able to do the reporting, and that person needs to be locally based. And so that's one strong theme I think that I've seen across different countries. The other theme would be, I guess, they're setting up frameworks to ensure there's responsiveness around emerging safety concerns. Every country wants to know what the other regulators are doing around the world, and wants to take that into consideration when they're looking at what their assessment is. And there's also an increasing, I guess, acceptance that the marketing authorization holder is the global safety database owner, should be the expert and should be very transparent in their risk assessments and in communicating those. So it's a strategy where they want to ensure that, number one, they're getting the information from the companies in a timely manner, and number two, that company is also sharing information about what other competent authorities are doing around the world. I think they're two very thematic sort of themes, but maybe which one you've got something more specific you can share.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Theo assessment. In fact, the Taiwan incidents arises through some kind of risk that they have actually assessed through the XML file, and hence they have this tightening of reporting requirements for local personnel to do that. So the other aspects, I think, which is similar to EU, which is our cross-border data flow. So as some of you may be aware, on 22nd of March 2024, the China Cyberspace Administrations of China issued this, new CBDT rules, the standardized cross-border data flow. So basically, this flow was actually very, very confused when they actually started roll out prior to the 22nd of March 2024. And the reason was because it was not mentioned very clearly what should be able to be cross-border transfer and what should not be. So this new rule that is coming out from CBDT, the new CBDT on 22nd of March 2024, basically mention about the CAC relevant official response to reiterate the requirements of the security administration of these CBDT activities, which include our pharmacovigilance, where we talk about the individual case safety reports. And they actually classify into two main categories, and that is the personal information and the important data. The export of any data other than these two categories in the course of various CBDT would not be subject to any requirements. So basically, they have fine-tuned it and make it more, easy to digest for people, on the ground, especially for us PV, where we talk about looking at, ICSR transfer. I think this is more the recent update that I thought would be of interest to share with the team. Yeah.
Thank you, Chuan. Thank you. Very interesting. Yeah. Talking about the local health authorities, what we see in other regions that not all of them are equally active. I assume in APAC region as well, some of them are more active in terms of inspections, for example. Maybe you can share some insights in which countries, which health authorities are more active, and maybe you can share some insights about the focus of their inspection as well.
Yeah, thanks, Albert. There's a lot more inspections happening, of course, every year, right? In the region, more authorities realizing the importance of conducting inspections and reinforcing their requirements. More recently, I guess, we've always had Japan, we've always had Australia, China. More authorities in Southeast Asia now are inspecting as well. Indonesia has started the last couple of years as well. I think we were there for their first inspection, which was interesting. And last month we also got to present with the TGA at the PVA Summit in Adelaide. Obviously, the approach each of the authorities takes is quite different. And how they conduct their inspections are quite different. And I can't emphasize how important it is to have that prior experience going into these inspections. If you know the style, the approach, the questions the inspectors take, it really sets you up very well for a good outcome, because you know where they're going to focus, you know the areas that they look at. And many of the authorities take a very standardized, systematic approach to their inspections. So they're quite predictable. So there's two benefits of that. Number one is that you can better prepare for the inspections. And the second thing, of course, is we can take the learnings from the inspection for one client and apply it to all our clients. So there's a benefit there for all when we attend an inspection. As far as some of the highlights, I guess the PV Summit, which is the most recent event, it was quite interesting that a lot of the focus was on a safety issue notifications, and both in Australia and New Zealand. I guess the authorities are going beyond emerging safety issues. They're looking at really significant safety issues, which they require in a very timely manner, and they always have. But they're also now talking about other safety issues, which means, you know, if any of the recognized or competent or comparable authorities request a change to a label, for instance, they want to know about it within 30 days. So again, it's really speaking to that, the need to know about what's happening around the world. And so that's again a theme that I've seen across different authorities, but I think one that's very important for companies to know, that besides the traditional questions, you know, about your quality management system and your PV processes, you know, risk management and safety issue notification seems to be an area where there's growing emphasis by most inspectors.
Yeah, and to add on to what Theo have mentioned, actually, the Southeast Asia context, recently there is also the Malaysia voluntary GVP audits. So it was stretched between 2023 to 2024, and 9 companies, both local and MNC, have participated in this audits. So you realize that NPRA, which is the National Competent Agency for Malaysia, so they actually are starting to emphasize a lot about this audits by the NCA. So of course 2023 to 2024 is only a voluntary one, but in their guidelines they have already specifically mentioned that GVP audit is up and coming. Yeah, so this is something that I thought would be good to highlight to the team. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you, guys. Another topic that is always coming up is risk management. So maybe the question I wanted to ask is, do you have any examples why we need local PV expertise with increasing focus on risk management in these settings?
Yeah, no, great question, Albert, because you know, there's a lot of activities that we can centralize in PV. And I think a lot of that work is going on, and a lot of that centralization has occurred. So the increasing value our local experts on the ground are providing is really focused on understanding how medicines are used in the local clinical setting and how that impacts the risk management activities for that product. Now, we know that most authorities now require an RMP, and many of them have a specific template or an annex that they require. And the question the authorities always ask is, how will the measures taken overseas to measure this, to manage this risk, are they suitable locally? And I remember when I was living in China a few years ago, and we had a product where in the US it had to be prescribed by a physician, whilst in China, in the remote areas of China, it was prescribed by or dispensed by a pharmacist. And that made a very significant difference in how to manage a very particular risk in this product. It really did change the risk profile in China. So we had to take a very different approach and be more active in managing the control of this medicine and to which patients it was being dispensed to. That was a great success because it meant that the risk could be managed, and the authorities were satisfied that the measures we were taking, which was basically approving each patient, was adequately protecting patients, because the risk was quite significant, but the benefit was also very important for patients. And I'm seeing that all the time now when we're drafting, writing RMPs and discussing that with the authorities. There really is, they want to know what's happening in the local country, what's the incidence here, how is it used, how is that different from other countries, and what does that mean for the risk profile and how we manage those risks. So it's a great space, and I know there's going to be a lot more happening there over the next 5-10 years. I think that will be really a very exciting area of PV, and we're looking forward to sort of helping the authorities and also our clients come to a great framework where we can manage those risks successfully.
Thanks for sharing, Theo. Very different topic, but I think equally interesting. Management of distributors and business partners in the Asia Pacific regions. Is it common for marketing authorization holders to delegate PV activities to their local distributors or business partners? If so, do you see any risk in this?
Yes, another great question. Of course, if I put myself in the position of our clients of the MAH, and they're delegating responsibilities, but they're still accountable for the compliance, right? And it's quite a scary proposition for them to be doing that. It makes a lot of business case. There's a strong business case for that to occur, but it's quite a daunting task. And so it's critical that they choose the appropriate vendor, right, that they can trust. I think one benefit that we've seen is that we've provided a lot of consultancy services for our clients, and then that's moved into a service model because we've gained their trust as the experts in that area. And again, I think when a company looks to outsource their activities, they really do need to go through a very robust selection process to make sure they're getting the right experts who know the country, have worked in the country previously, understand PV very well, and that they can totally trust. And then, of course, measures such as a good contract, and complete transparency with reports, KPIs, and metrics, and so on. And of course, a very good relationship. So they should never go to bed, worrying about whether their vendor is doing what they're supposed to be doing. They should have that complete visibility, and they should have that complete trust. So it is happening a lot in the region. And we're seeing more and more of that done. And quite often we're coming in a bit late sometimes in the sense of that they've chosen a vendor who doesn't have PV expertise, and we then have to come in and remediate a few of the risks there and then resume the activities. So that's a very tough position for a company to be in, and you don't want to be doing compliance activity right the second time. You want to get it right the first time. So it's important that there's that really strong due diligence process in ensuring they find the right vendor for them that they can trust and they can have a long-term relationship with.
Thank you, Theo.
Yeah, so just to add an example, thanks Theo for that. So we have an example where we have a client who actually has outsourced their marketing activities to a distributor in China. So after I think they have launched the products, they realize that the company do not have a PV capability, when in fact that China requires a very robust PV system in place for the local distributor or market authorization holder. And hence, Theo and myself, we managed to go in to support the client and to set up the PV system in China. Yeah, so that is something that I thought it would be worthwhile, to mention that, so that anyone that is that would need any help, feel free to come to us.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
another point there I think is important as well is the auditing, right? We do a lot of audits of vendors as well. And the insights you gain from an audit, whether it's a pre-qualification or it's a routine audit, it's those insights you can't gain in any other way. And so I think there's a lot of value in those audits. But again, that can be based on that could be a risk-based approach to assess, your vendor selection really should allow you to assess what type of risk you're looking at here, what are the unknowns, and when and how frequently you should conduct your audits. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.